Throughout the whole truce period, Kale Boroka actions carry on. Violent activists attack companies and the headquarters of many democratic parties, and they burn urban buses and cash dispensers. In total, there are over 1,000 violent acts on the streets during the 439 days of the truce, an average of more than 2 attacks per day. However, the government does not freeze the peace process. Aznar merely warns the Abertzale left that street violence may delay the release of ETA prisoners.
Anybody who engages in violence or authorizes it is harming the prospects of those people who are in prison as a result of a firm court sentence, is harming those people's prospects. My hopes are intact. The hopes are intact. And I am conscious of the many problems that have to be overcome. My will to overcome them is intact.
ETA carries on extorting money from business owners in the Basque Country and Navarra throughout the whole truce period and continues to demand payment of the so-called revolutionary tax. The terrorists also perform several armed actions in the south of France. The most serious of them takes place in September 1999 during an assault in a company that produced explosives in the French Brittany. A squad made up of 6 terrorists overpowers 4 employees and steals over 8 tons of explosives and 5,000 detonators. The government does not freeze the peace process because of this, but the opposition does not make use of these violent acts to question the negotiating strategy of the executive, and the press doesn't either. Aznar had demanded discretion and loyalty from the press in order not to thwart the peace process.
The ruling principle must be, as is natural, discretion and reserve. I am sure that in defense of this principle, you are all going to lend your cooperation and enthusiastic understanding.
And that is what in fact happens. All national newspapers without exception, from El Mundo to El País and ABC, praise what they refer to as Aznar's political courage in trying to attain peace by means of a process of talks with ETA. The press grant the same support when the government makes concessions to the terrorist group in the form of penitentiary improvements for its prisoners. The attitude of the opposition and the press allow the government to keep the first meeting held with a delegation of Herri Batasuna secret. Aznar's cabinet head, Javier Sarcelejos, the Secretary of State for Security, Ricardo Martí Fluxá, and Pedro Ariola, personal advisor to the Prime Minister, meet with the leadership of Batasuna in a chalet in Huaros, Burgos province. It is December the 11th, 1998. It is less than 6 months since ETA assassinated Manuel Samareño, a Popular Party town councillor, and less than 1 year and a half after the kidnap and assassination of Miguel Ángel Blanco. However, Aznar's men sit round the same table as Arnaldo Otegi, leader of Herri Batasuna, and other leaders of the Abertzale left, such as Fernando Barrena or Rafael Díaz Usubiaga. In the meeting they talk about territorial issues and the Basque right to self-determination. The Batasuna leadership arrives and leaves the meeting in the same way, protected by a Guardia Civil escort which allows them to go unnoticed. The government never informed Spanish citizens about this meeting. However, 7 days later, Aznar publicly announces that the process of normalization in Euskadi involves all political forces, including Batasuna.
The definitive cease of violence is not a partisan objective, a humiliating dictate, or compensation for a political price. It is the cornerstone supporting the normalization process, the responsibility for which lies primarily with the institutions and all Basque political forces without exception.
During the months of the truce, the government and also other institutions directed by the Popular Party do not hesitate to reiterate their will to negotiate and be generous with ETA. Neither Aznar nor the rest of the members of his party seem to be worried about the fact that ETA, which now has the support of the Basque nationalist parties and associations which signed the Estala Pact, is still demanding the right to self-determination for the Basque people or territorial issues such as the annexation of Navarra to Euskadi. The President of Navarra gives a clear response referring to the spirit with which he is facing the truce.
Then it will be possible, and I insist, to talk about generosity, and Navarra will be there. It is not going to turn its back.
Miguel Sanz talks openly about the possible reinsertion of ETA prisoners.
As the truce becomes consolidated and progress is made in this peace process, so that the indefinite truce is replaced by a definitive lying down of arms, it will be possible to talk about penitentiary policy and reinsertion policy.
The government tries to meet with ETA as soon as possible. However, it publicly admits that it is waiting for the group to choose the moment.
ETA has not yet appointed an interlocutor.
The moment for direct face-to-face talks with the ETA leadership arrives on May the 19th, 1999. On that day, the ETA leaders, Miquel Antza and Belén González Peñalva, sit round the same table in a hotel in the Swiss city of Zurich. In front of them sit the three negotiators appointed by Aznar, his cabinet head, Javier Sarcelejos, his personal advisor, Pedro Arriola, and the Secretary of State for Security, Ricardo Martí Fluxá. The Bishop of Bilbao, Juan María Uriarte, moderates and acts as notary. The meeting focuses on self-determination and territorial issues. The parts agree on holding another meeting which never takes place. During the following months, the government unsuccessfully requests another face-to-face meeting with ETA.
The government is prepared to talk in order to attain peace.
Aznar makes endless gestures to try to prevent the process from going off track. His government continues to release ETA prisoners and transfer them to prisons near the Basque Country. It also continues to allow members of the organization that had escaped abroad to return to Spain. In the midst of an extremely serious escalation of street violence and of the first rumors announcing the breach of the truce, the Minister of Home Affairs, Jaime Mayor Oreja, makes a significant statement.
We are prepared to talk, to make penitentiary policy more flexible and to study the reinsertion of ETA members, to do whatever is necessary without prior demands, without negotiating the handing over of weapons. But peace depends on them.
This message is reiterated 1 month later by the Secretary of State for Security, Ricardo Martí Fluxá.
Requesting that the terrorists hand over their weapons is absurd.
All the government's gestures and summons proved to be useless. On November the 28th, 1999, ETA announces that the truce is over and that it will start killing once again. The democratic opposition, led by the Socialist Party, and practically all the media, only hold ETA accountable for the failure of the peace process. Nobody reproaches the Aznar government for the following, which all took place during the 439 days of the ceasefire: calling the terrorists Basque National Liberation Movement, authorizing negotiations with ETA only 4 months after their last assassination, holding talks with Batasuna leadership in Burgos, negotiating with the leadership of ETA in Zurich, transferring over 120 ETA prisoners to prisons in the Basque Country, releasing dozens of prisoners who were members of the terrorist organization, allowing the return to Spain of over 300 ETA members who lived abroad, keeping up talks and the hope of attaining definitive peace while over 1,000 attacks of Kale Borroka were being perpetrated. The wish for peace of the Spanish proved to be stronger than any partisan interest.